Okay, so last week I attended the 10th annual medical spa show in Las Vegas that is put on by Spa. It was my first time attending, and I have to share with you, it was amazing. It was so great. I'm so glad that I went. I would do it again and again. And so before I dive into what my big takeaways were, I would love in the comment box, tell me, were you there? Did I miss you? By putting in the comment box, I wouldn't miss it, or I wish I could have made it, to get an idea of who all was there. So, okay, so some of my big takeaways, and there were so many, like I have a full notebook, I have so many pamphlets, I have so many screenshots on my phone. It was really hard to choose what to focus on because there was so much good stuff. And I didn't even attend any of the, more service provider injector anatomy. Of course, I focused on, the business, the marketing, the leadership side of things. So I can't even imagine how great that was for providers. So there was so much good stuff that I actually am going to break this into two different segments, because I think there was that much value to be had. So the very first thing that I want to cover is what I learned about how to recruit the top talent and retain them for your med spa. I get a lot of questions, right? I need an injector, I need a provider, I need an office manager, I need a front desk. And I learned about some really great recruiting companies that specialize and work with med spas all across the country. But before you dive into your pocket and spend the big bucks to hire a recruiter, I talked to all the top performing med spas about their recruitment policy and wanted to share with you what I learned. So first off, they utilize Indeed, right? They utilize the job board networks, but they said the most important thing when posting for a position is that you need to be very, very specific in your job description. Do not skimp on this. Do not just throw something up there. If you want to attract top talent, you need to be very specific about the scope of work, the roles, responsibilities, and duties that come along with that position. You need to be able to clearly communicate the culture and expectations of your team. And you have to have a killer compensation package if you're going to get top talent away from a competitor for that matter. Also, when it comes to pay, you need to have a compensation plan that you have to kind of pick a team, right? That is very competitive, that's going to motivate them or provide them with the sense of security that they need to be able to make a move. Also, when you post that on the job boards, you need to do the paid subscription portion of it and boost that post. And all the top med spas said that they go that route first, right? We're talking about a couple $100. They do that for 1 to 2 months. And at 1 to 2 months, if they don't get the candidates that they are looking for, then they seek outside guidance with a med spa recruitment company. Now, if you're to hire a med spa recruitment company, expect to pay about $10,000. Now, the great thing about that is that they do all the work for you. They're going to vet all the candidates and pre-qualify them so that at the very end of the day, you get like just the good candidates that are left. This is also a really great way if you don't want to, expose to the market that you are in fact looking for a specific position for whatever reason that may be. They can keep things confidential until you get down to the very end and you can sign non-disclosures and all of that. So there is a real purpose for a recruiting company. And of course, they are able to give you guidance on compensation plans and all of that. But really, You need to make sure that you have sound job description, roles, and responsibilities, because you're going to need that when you onboard someone anyway. Okay. So do the work on the front side. Try to go, the inexpensive route of doing a couple $100s. But at the end of the day, a lot of times the best talent are already employed and may not necessarily be looking on those job boards. Sometimes they are, right? Because maybe they're super talented, but for whatever reason, they're not happy in their current role. And so they may be looking, but sometimes they're not. And that's when a recruiting company could come in and access their database, their list, their contacts and network to be able to increase the number of talent in the pool for you to choose from. But essentially, you're probably looking about a $10,000 investment if you go the recruitment company route. Some of those recruiting companies have guarantees in the sense of if it doesn't work out after 90 days, you can go back to the drawing board and they'll do it all over again for you to make sure that you find the right fit. Okay. So that's what I learned about recruiting top talent. So hopefully you were able to have some good takeaways for that. The next big topic that really opened up my eyes to the massive really money in med spa is mergers and acquisitions. You guys, when I first got there, I looked around the room and I was like, these guys don't look like med spa guys. And come to find out, they are attorneys, accountants, financiers. In essence, they are merger and acquisition companies. They're MSO companies. And several years ago, big business saw the extreme opportunity there is to be had with med spas. And, before I attended this event, I could name a few players in the merger and acquisition game. But I was really shocked to just see how many companies there are out there. And I heard great speakers from actual merger and acquisition companies. And then I heard med spa owners who had just recently gone through the process of, hiring an MSO company or going through a merger and acquisition themselves. And it was really eye-opening to learn, the trials and tribulations. So I literally could do a full training, multiple trainings on what I learned about merger and acquisitions. But in essence, if what you need to do is to build, in essence, your board of directors. So you need to have an accountant where your finances are so organized and buttoned up that with a click of the button, you could send out your financial information for a merger and acquisition company to review. So you have to have really clean financials for them to sort through. The next is you need an attorney, and not just any attorney, not your friend, not your divorce attorney, but you really need a mergers and acquisition attorney. Is it more expensive? Of course it is. But in the end, it's going to actually save you money because, attorney that isn't specialized and really knows the lay of the land when it comes to mergers and acquisition, you're going to spend way more money because they just don't know what they don't know. So let your divorce attorney or your friend or your husband be an advisor on your team, but you really want a merger and acquisition attorney. They're going to save you time, money, and they're going to help you make the best decision for your business. Some of the things that I learned that are real deal killers, if you're looking to be acquired and someone to buy you, the biggest deal killers are one, you are not compliant, right? Because it's so much risk for someone to come in if you're not running your business following compliance. The next thing is you have a lot of staff turnovers. In essence, if they can see that you have, a revolving door of staff, it shows poor leadership. It shows that you don't have a sound system in place, and that they're going to struggle and coming in and trying to fix poor culture, and poor leadership. So you want to make sure that you don't have a lot of staff turnover. You also want to be able to show in your financials that you're trending up and that you're not trending down, right? That you're not a sinking ship. Additionally, that you have such a replicatable system that they're going to be able to continue to grow. So if that means that, you step out of the equation, that you're going to lose a large number of your patients, or potentially could lose a large number of your patients, whether it's you or dependent on one or two staff members, then again, there is volatility and risk involved. So you're not as sexy of a acquisition at the end of the day. So when you engage and consider a merger or acquisition, you need to understand that it's going to be expensive, because attorneys, accountants, right? There's so many things that you just don't know what you don't know when you first enter into this merger and acquisition world. And you need to be prepared, and the extreme amount of time and financial commitment involved in it. But it's going to be eye-opening. You're going to learn really the strengths and weaknesses in your business. And so really, it's never too soon to start developing that team and really getting your house in order, because it's not only going to help you for like the future, the one day when you're going to sell, but it's going to help you right now to optimize your business. And so really, like, you want to approach running your business as if you're ready to sell tomorrow, even if you have no plans of doing it 5 years or 10 years or longer down the road. It's going to benefit you, I promise. All right. So I'll do more in the future about mergers and acquisitions, but boy, I tell you, there was like a 1.5 days committed to great speakers and resources when it came to mergers and acquisitions. And that's how the AmSpa team came from merger and acquisition lawyers. So of course, they're going to dedicate quite a bit of time at this specific show. So if that's something that interests you, I do recommend you don't miss this event next year. All right, the third thing that was heavily talked about is building your med spa culture. And I know that sounds a little like woo-woo, but time and time again, every time there was a keynote speaker or a kind of all-star speaker that talked about, where they started and how they got to where they're at right now, and how they, made it to $3 million, $5 million, $7 million in revenue, right? They all talked about culture and what they, how they learned the hard way that if you don't make that a priority and invest time, money, and energy into building your culture, you're going to have staff turnover. And when you have staff turnover, you lose patients, you lose revenue, you lose time, you have headaches, right? And so some of the things that are best practices that the top performing med spas talked about when building culture is transparency in sharing your numbers. And so many clients that I talk to are really hesitant to do that. It's scary in the beginning to do that, right? Because your team may see the massive amount of revenue coming in the door, but they just really don't have a grasp on how expensive it is to run a med spa. So you're afraid to show them some of those bigger numbers because you don't feel like they're ready or truly can grasp and understand what it takes to run a med spa and how small the margin of net profit is at the end of the day for the high risk and overhead that you are carrying. But what I can tell you is that, again, time and time again, that if you expect growth, you have to inspect those numbers every single day. And they talk about sharing numbers with your team weekly, because you don't want to wait a whole month or quarter, and certainly not annually, because you're waiting too long to make changes and adjustments. So they talk a lot about in your weekly meeting, sharing everybody's numbers. And again, that's a scary thing, especially when you first walk into that for the first time. It makes people very uncomfortable. Now, once it becomes an established thing, it's just the norm in your culture. It's great and people love it. But in the beginning, some people just can't handle it. And you have to be okay with cleaning a little house in order to go through the growing pains to get to where you ultimately want to be, so that you can make adjustments in real time, so that you can get feedback in real time, because you don't want to wait on these things, okay? And of course, with the team meetings, you need to have an agenda, you need to stick to the agenda, you need to stick to the amount of time so that your team isn't like, oh, this 15-minute or 30-minute meeting turns into 2 hours every time. They have to know that you're going to respect their time and follow the agenda, and whatever you don't get to, then you'll either email out or get it to the following week. Now, the next thing is that you have to have one-on-ones with your team. And generally those one-on-ones look like having once a month. Are they time consuming? Yes, but they are so worth it, because you literally lose tens of thousands of dollars every time you have staff turnover. And in some positions, you could lose hundreds of thousands of dollars by losing a team member. So it's so important, and you got to stay ahead of it, right? You got to hit things head on. You can't let things fester. You have to have a feedback loop. Now, with that feedback loop, you need to establish in your culture that it is expected for team members to give managers and owners feedback. Just like they need to expect that as a team member, they are going to receive feedback as well. So I want to break that down a little bit, because you want, as a leader, to lead by example, okay? So you want to tell them that part of their role and responsibility is to share their feedback. Now, don't confuse this for a bitching session, but really constructive feedback and how they're feeling, what they are seeing, so that together I can learn from it, or I can help you work through it, right? And when sometimes as a leader or a business owner, some of that feedback is a little bit hard to receive. Just like on the opposite end for your team member, some of your feedback for them can be hard to receive. But if you show them by example that you are open to receiving it, right? And you want to receive that, and what that looks like, thank you for your feedback. It makes you an important member of the team when you share your feedback. Thank you so much, right? Acknowledge them, thank them for being, being brave enough to come forward and share their constructive feedback, if that is the case, right? Or hopefully positive. But you need both. That's the only way that you can fix things, right? That you can make things better, that you can optimize, that you can have better experience for your team, better experience for your patients. You got to be open to feedback, and your team members have to be open to feedback. And that is something that you build in your culture, that you lead by example, that it's a conscious effort to build. And so few businesses these days have established that. Right. And so those are just some examples of how you establish it in your company. Okay. So the next thing is show in the comments if you have a team member that's freaking amazing at what she does, right? But you have to walk on eggshells because they're rogue. They do it their way, right? There's different rules for this team member compared to other team members, right? We all have those. We all experience those. It's a tough thing, right? Because we're scared at rocking the boat because we don't want to lose that person. But yet it can, if you're not careful, it can literally become a cancer to your med spa. And so one of the things that Tiffany Hall, the Chief Growth Officer for Aesthetic Records, she had a great talk. One of the quotes that she said that I loved so much is, "The only way is the company way." And so, if I'm Belle Visage Med Spa, then and I'm talking to my team, and we're talking about instilling, a system or a policy. I would start using the language, the scripting, the verbiage in our meetings, in our emails regularly. The only way is the Belle Visage way. Okay. And really living by that and holding people accountable. Again, when you start doing this, guys, it's ugly, it's uncomfortable, people are pissed, you may even leave team members. But I can tell you, the sooner you do this, the sooner that you really work on and establish really positive culture in your med spa and get the right team together, you are going to prosper. You're going to enjoy working so much better. You're not going to have some of like the catty BS fires that as office managers and med spa owners that you have to deal with, right? There's always going to be things. But if you really invest time, energy, and money in your culture, then you're going to be able to alleviate some of those fires and that drama that comes along with being a leader. And so, write that down. The only way is the company way. I think that like you should make a t-shirt of that, make signs, and start using that language in your team meetings, and your emails, and really live by that. But to be able to live by that, you have to have clearly defined, mission, vision, goals, values, and then you really have to hold true to them, which is the hard part, right? We can spend a lot of time writing them down and we can share them with our team once. But if we're constantly not coming back to them and using them every day in our language, every week in our meetings and our one-on-ones, then they can quickly it's kind of like making goals at the beginning of the year, right? They're really great and hot and cool and sexy in January, but if we're not constantly coming back to them, they're just fleeting thoughts, right? And so, my big 3 that I wanted to share with you today is recruiting top talent, what that looks like, mergers and acquisitions. And oh my gosh, I could go on that one. And I will share with you more to come on the mergers and acquisitions. But really, the big takeaway is culture, and how impactful that is for your med spa. And, we spend thousands of dollars, right, to become an injector. We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on new device and thousands of dollars on marketing. But how much time, energy, and money do we spend on our culture? And if we really ask ourselves at the end of the day how that manifests in our med spa and affects at the end of the day our turnover with our team, our turnover with our patients, and ultimately how that impacts our revenue at the end of the day, I think it will be eye-opening for you, and help you to really put that at the forefront. And it's not an easy thing. And it's not a do it once and put it down and check that box, that problem, or that task is done. It's ongoing. And we all can level up our game when it comes to culture. It's a constant challenge and battle, but it's a good one. It's worthwhile doing as a business owner and a leader. Okay. So I'm going to open up the floor for any questions at this time. And next week, I'm going to be going over the metrics and the benchmarks the top performing med spas across the country really dominate in. I'm going to give you specific data points and numbers and benchmarking that I think will be eye-opening for you to then go and look at what your numbers look like to see like, oh, we're doing really good here. We have a great opportunity to grow here. And then we can talk about how you can go about to improve that specific benchmark and how ultimately that's going to affect your bottom line at the end. So any questions before we sign off here? anyone going to make sure that they don't miss out and head to this conference next year? I'm telling you, it was a great one if you haven't had a chance to go yet. But at the end of the day, it's always what you make of it, right? Like I could have just went to Vegas and seen a few people talk and then, you know, hit a show in the buffet, right? But let me tell you, I did not waste a minute of time. I did it all. Not only was I up early, seeing all the talks, networking, meeting so many, like just the best of the best in the industry, the best device companies, the best skincare companies, technology companies, their merger and acquisitions, like everyone that you need to know is at this show, whether it's right now, right, or potentially in the future that you are going to need to utilize some of these people. So it was definitely a worthwhile one. And next one on my radar is this fall, this September, the Aesthetic Next Conference is on my radar as well. And so let me know if you guys are going to be going to that conference, because I would love to meet you in person at the Aesthetic Next Conference, because I'm not going to miss that one either. So thanks so much for joining me live here. And next week you tune in, because I'm going to be sharing with you some freaking mind-blowing data that the top med spas are achieving all across the country. Thanks, guys.